Good morning, beautiful souls. How are you? It's Amy here. I have had the feeling that I would like to pop on and talk to you all about anxiety. Now, anxiety is something that at some point every single one of us will experience to some degree. And not all anxiety is actually negative or bad. Sometimes we need anxiety and we need a little bit of stress just to give us that push to do something. It could be studying for an important exam, it could be like for a driving test or a job interview. And so not all anxiety is necessarily a negative. Anxiety can be a positive, but anxiety can definitely have a negative impact on us and on our lives. And for anybody that's potentially kind of tapping in and saying kind of hello this morning and watching this, I'd say either you have been through anxiety or you're going through a period of anxiety, or you know somebody that has had anxiety, and maybe having a bit of an awareness of how detrimental it can be. And what a big impact it can have on your life. So if we do Dr. Google's definition of anxiety, it's a feeling of unease, such as worry or fear, that can be mild to severe. So anxiety is your body's natural response to stress, but a big event or a build-up of small events or situations may trigger excessive anxiety. So for anybody that has experienced anxiety on a more excessive level or a more severe level, on any form of level that is detrimental, know that it can have a big impact on your life, and know that it's not quite as succinct and simple as Dr. Google's definition. So, symptoms of anxiety. Again, this is Google's kind of definition. A faster heartbeat, faster breathing, a feeling of unease or dread, anxious thoughts, moodiness, irritability or anger, general unhappiness, a feeling of being overwhelmed, loneliness, nausea, dizziness, nervousness and restlessness, sweating, diarrhea or constipation, tenseness and chills. They're quite a broad range. Some people will experience one or two of those symptoms. Some people will experience many of those symptoms. It varies very wildly from person to person. And what you experience one time can be completely different to what you experience another time. So what I really wanted to come on and kind of convey today is some self-care management and some tips for managing stress and anxiety. As we all know at the moment, the world is fairly upside down, sideways, wonky, whatever you want to refer to it, and a lot of people will be experiencing some degree of stress, powerlessness and anxiety. So firstly, it's crucial to accept that you are feeling anxious. This is crucial, this is a huge part, because none of us really like to think that we're not running at 100%. But it's hugely important that we realise there's no weakness to experiencing anxiety. And it's actually very, very common. It's very, very common, especially in the fast-paced world we're in now, where we are experiencing huge demands, huge expectations, And that would be a normal day-to-day life, let alone 2020, where we have a whole myriad of other things on top of us. You know, there's an awful lot of fear, hate, anger, heavy energies around at the moment. So anxiety is a very normal response to the stress and the powerlessness that many of us might feel to the world going on around us. So yeah, first and foremost, it's kind of just accepting that you experience anxiety, and there is nothing wrong, nothing bad about experiencing anxiety. There's not a weakness in that. It's actually very, very normal and very, very common. Then we try and kind of rationalise a little bit. We need to remember that our mind plays tricks on us. Anxiety is a pesky thing. It can be a little bit like, reminds me of that game Whack-A-Mole. You can imagine all these little worries, alarms, fears, stresses that we have, and they kind of keep poking up through the ground. And we are wielding that Whack-A-Mole hammer, and we're trying to knock it down. Bang, bang, bang. Knock these worries back down into the ground where we just, they're not bothering us anymore. So anxiety tends to pull out the worst case scenarios for us. We tend to jump ahead and we're worrying about the what ifs, the maybes, the what could happens. So it's potentially crucial for you, especially if the anxiety is building to quite a high level, to keep reminding yourself that you're safe. Keep reminding yourself that you're safe. Just remember, when you're trying to knock down all these fears, all these panics, all these worries, you are safe. Okay, so the mind is very clever, very, very clever, and it does like to play tricks on us. So if you're experiencing a panic attack or physical symptoms that can come along with the anxiety, remind yourself that you're safe and that these symptoms will pass. They might feel very real, they might feel very, very present, but they will pass. And I know this is a huge challenge, and it can be a work in progress, something to kind of keep focusing on and keep working with, but just always remind yourself that you are safe in this present moment, even though it might not feel like it and your body is responding on fight and flight, but you are safe. So next tip, a great way to try and get these random thoughts out your head, the thoughts that are flying around, that might be coming overwhelming, might be coming on top of you, just finding that it's becoming too much, is to write your thoughts and your feelings down. It can be a great way to help organise them and process them. And for some, not for all, but for some, it can be a really good way of potentially reducing the intensity of these thoughts, because you are allowing them a way out. They're a way out of your head. So potentially, try writing them down. Again, this isn't going to be for everybody. But it could be you journal each day and you find either at the beginning of the day or the end of the day that you write them down. And it's a way just to release. It could be that you get a piece of paper and you just write them all out. It can be or draw them or find a way that works for you and you burn them. It's just find a way to get those thoughts out of your head. So this might just help to reduce the intensity and the frequency of these thoughts flying around your head. If you feel able to, and again, this isn't going to be for everybody, depending on what's going on for you, see if you can question these thoughts, especially if you've written them down. Maybe have a little read through them and see if there are any potential triggers, any regular triggers that come up. Also look at these thoughts, these worries, these fears, these alarms, these stresses. Are they real? Are they valid? And how likely are these fears and alarms to actually manifest? For some of you, you might find you could do like a 1 to 10 scale. Because as I was saying, a few minutes ago, our mind does like to play tricks on us. It plays on this whole worst case scenario situation, especially when we are in an anxiety state. So potentially write some of these fears and alarms down and consider how likely some of these fears and these worries are to really manifest at the level that you're worrying about them. Okay, so another little tip. Use positive self-talk and try and relax. So affirmations are a great way to try and flip our negative thinking. And it can be really something as simple as, I am a good person. I think good thoughts. I care for others. I have a lot to offer my friends and my family. It can be very, very simple. It can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. So the important thing is to try and flip the context of our thinking, flip the narrative. I do a little thing when I do it with my adult groups as well. I was going to say I do it with my kids groups, but I do it with my adults groups as well. I use like lolly sticks from the craft shops, and you can get them in like Poundland and things like that, or Eurozone. And on them I write just very basic little affirmations, and I stick them all in a little jar. And one of the first things when people come through the door, I like them to pull an affirmation, and that's that kind of their affirmation for the day. And you could put that little lolly stick in your handbag, it could be in your purse, it could be in your pocket, you could stick it by the mirror, but it's just something positive to focus on for the day. And similarly, you could find an affirmation or two that works for you, and you could write it on the mirror. Well, put a sticky note or something, or if you really want to, get some lipstick or an eyeliner or, something like that and write it on the mirror. But you could, get a post-it note or some sticky paper or what have you, and stick a few of these affirmations on the mirror. You look at them while you're doing your makeup or you're cleaning your teeth or shaving. You could have them by the door, the main door that you're walking through to exit the house, just as a good positive reminder. You could have them in the car. It could be kind of by the dashboard somewhere, or just somewhere, or maybe taped to the inside of your phone case or something, just somewhere that you see them regularly and can just give you that positive reinforcement. As I say, it's just to try and flip the narrative. And mindfulness and meditation are also fantastic tools to assist in relaxation and to just try and quieten the mind and slow down that negative narrative that tends to build, gain momentum, digs trenches, and can just run away with itself. Sometimes it's good to think of our mind a little bit like, you could think of it like a river, or, like when the fields are ploughed. So first of all, if you're like a river, you can imagine, at the top of a mountain, the water starts to carve its way into the rock and into the ground. And as it goes down, it's carving its way and it's digging deeper, and it becomes very kind of sure of its roots. It doesn't, at the top it might be kind of going everywhere because it hasn't dug into the ground yet. But as it goes further down, it becomes more entrenched, and it becomes deeper, and it becomes wider. That flow and all the tributaries come into it. It's very, very entrenched, and it's got like a fixed flow. Our thoughts and our mind can be very, very similar. If we're unconscious of our thoughts and we're not aware of where our thoughts are going, they can create their own river, and they can become very entrenched and just flow without kind of much awareness and without much knowledge. As I say, like I was saying with the ploughed fields, it can be the same. They become in their lane. And what we want to do is try and stop our thoughts running in these unconscious lanes, and just kind of break it up. So mindfulness and meditation can be a great tool. And you don't have to sit there for an hour. Meditation doesn't have to be a case of taking yourself off for an hour and forcing yourself to sit there and I must do this while beating yourself up because your mind's wandering. It can be as simple as just going and standing under some trees and looking upwards and taking some deep breaths, or taking a walk and just grounding yourself while deep breathing and just taking in everything around you. It could be 60 seconds just sat in the car or at your desk or in the bed in the morning, just deep breathing into yourself and centering yourself. So I will move on with the tips here. Focus on the present moment only. Now, anxiety, stress and depression have our minds jumping left, right and centre. They call it the monkey mind, and they don't call it the monkey mind for no reason. You can just imagine that monkey swinging through the trees, grabbing at various branches. That's very much what our mind can become like if we are kind of unconscious of our thoughts, and even when we are conscious of our thoughts, if I'm honest. It's just that we can become conscious of them and start to try and bring it back to centre. So trying to stay in the present moment is a wonderful method of just trying to keep you in the here and now. To stop your head shooting off in different directions and creating different scenarios, worst case scenarios, planning too far ahead, and just sending yourself into a spin. Okay. Again, mindfulness comes into that beautifully. Mindfulness awareness, mindfulness breath, mindfulness gratitude meditations. And they can just be a couple of minutes. They don't have to be too long. Okay, another tip is to focus on the breath. And a bit like the way our minds go on autopilot, you can be driving the car and find you've arrived at a destination without even realising that you've driven the road. Your mind's just, you're there. Our breath is very much the same. Our breath is actually crucial to life. But we are actually often completely oblivious to the fact that we're actually breathing. It's just another kind of automated system. But focusing on the breath reconnects us with ourselves and keeps us connected to our body and also to the now moment. So have you actually noticed if you are upset, if you're angry, if you're anxious, if something takes you by surprise, your breathing changes? I know I'm awful for it. If I get upset or if I am going through an anxiety period, I almost stop breathing. I almost forget to breathe, or my breath is very, very shallow. And you can almost feel it in your chest then. So we need to try and connect more to our breath. Mindfulness, again, I keep using that lovely keyword. I'm sure it's one you've all heard an awful lot of, but mindfulness has just some beautiful, simple breathing techniques that can be very, very quick, very simple, and encourage us to focus on the breath and how it moves throughout the body and how it is felt in the body. And it can be as simple as just taking that breath in and feeling how it moves through the nose, down the throat, into the lungs, being aware of how the lungs expand and contract with the breath, how the stomach expands and contracts. So it's just bringing you back to your body, but also experiencing how that breath moves throughout the body, that it's not just an automated system. There's also a method called breath work. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but it's a term which covers various breathing practices, in which the participant consciously controls the breath. Now, there's loads of different breathing techniques that you can use, and again, it's finding the one that works for you. But a very, very simple one, especially if you're in a bit of an anxiety state and you're just trying to want to bring yourself back in for that moment, is to literally just still yourself for a moment. Inhale really slowly, counting to 5. Feel your belly expand and the air move through you. Now hold that breath and count to 3. Feel the breath cycle through the body. Exhale completely with a slightly open mouth to a count of 5. So imagine your breathing pattern of 5, 3, 5. Inhale for 5. Hold for 3. And exhale for 5. And repeat until you feel relaxed. You might find that count is either too long or too short for you, so you can play around and find kind of what works for you. But it creates a lovely, gentle pattern that just quietens the body down. Imagine the tide when you're at the beach, and you know when you go up and the tide is out and you can see all those little ripples in the sand, the wet sand. Just imagine your breathing pattern a little bit like that, like ripples in the water and the sand. There is also a technique that you can use using alternate nostrils. So again, use your counting breathing. So we'll do a 5, 3, 5, but you just start covering one nostril. You breathe in for 5, hold for 3, and breathe out for 5. And you switch nostrils. To 5, hold for 3, and breathe out to the count of 5. And again, do until you are relaxed. And find your own rhythm, find your own count. And the great thing with any of the breathing work or breath work or breathing techniques is that they can be done at any time, any place. Nobody even really has to be aware that you're doing it. As I say, you could be doing it at your desk, you could be doing it in the shops, you could be in the car. But it is just a great way of relaxing yourself, bringing yourself back to centre, and bringing your body back into itself. So as well as relaxation, there's actually an awful lot of benefits to breath work. So I thought I'd share these with you as well because it's quite interesting. So as well as centering yourself, bringing yourself back into the moment, relaxing the body, when you breathe deeply, and I do mean not that shallow, and feel the lungs and almost feeling it moving down into the abdomen, into the belly, 70% of toxins are released simply by breathing properly, which is quite amazing, isn't it? And when we actually think about it, we really don't breathe deeply and properly. We don't. We're just, as I say, I think I was saying earlier, it's an unconscious mechanism. We just on autopilot. But yeah, if we breathe deeply and properly, 70% of toxins are released. It also relieves emotional distress, which is really what we're trying to achieve with the breath work in this instance, if we're using it for our stress or anxiety. So you're clearing out negative and confused feelings with a deep breath. It also improves your blood. Deep breathing increases oxygen supply and releases carbon dioxide. It relieves tension. So when you're feeling fearful, afraid, stressed or nervous, your breathing patterns change. And slow, purposeful breaths relax the body. And breathwork also elevates mood. So breathing increases pleasure, inducing chemicals in the body, which is exactly what we're after. We want that serotonin, that oxytocin. We want those good, feel-good hormones to come back into the body, those feel-good chemicals. So, moving on to the next tip. So if you are feeling anxious, you are feeling stressed, you are just feeling wired and overdone, go somewhere that you feel peaceful. For some of you, that could be a walk in the woods, it could be going to sit by a lake, it could be a trip to the beach, it could be a good book on the sofa, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's what works for you. What works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another. But go somewhere that you feel peaceful and that you can just connect back with yourself and that you can just feel relaxed. Do something that you enjoy. Okay, and again, that can vary wildly from person to person. It could be going for a walk. It could be baking, it could be sewing, it could be knitting, it could be going for a run, it could be making something. But do something that you enjoy doing that, again, brings you back into your now moment, into your body, into your zone, and that reminds you that there is something that you enjoy doing. Because one of the traits with anxiety, with stress, with depression is that we often start to feel quite desolate, that hopeless, that there's a lack of enjoyment, and we can really start to lose those feelings of just day-to-day simple pleasures. So by connecting ourselves back to small little things that we enjoy doing, it helps to bring back that hope and that joy into our daily life. Okay, reduce caffeine and drink lots and lots of water. Now that might sound a really simple one, but caffeine can send our systems into overdrive, and especially if we are in a bit of a stress response or an anxiety response or a trauma response, it just heightens that. And again, it sounds really an obvious one, but it's one of the first things to suffer when we are in an anxiety state or a stress state is our sleep. So take care of your sleep routine. Try and sleep on time if you can, or at least keep a bit of a routine. Get plenty of rest. And I know that is an awful lot easier said than done, especially when the head is spinning. But even if it means getting into bed and sticking your earphones in and listening to a bit of a meditation, or finding just an easy book to read that kind of doesn't take too much thinking, that helps you zone out. Try and avoid devices as well for about an hour before bed, because again, the light side of it just stimulates the brain. Also try and create a bit of routine for yourself. If you're finding that potentially maybe a lack of routine is affecting how you're feeling, if it's leaving you a little bit lost, if it is helping you just feel out of sync, a basic routine can just help you feel a little bit more in control. So anxiety thrives on chaos and uncertainty. And let's be honest, the world this year especially is chaos and is full of uncertainty. So a good routine, and it doesn't have to be an excessive routine, it can be very, very simple. A good routine can just help. Even if it's on a small level, it can just help you feel like you just have a little bit of semblance of control on your day-to-day. Another kind of key bit of advice is to schedule activities that regularly trigger your anxiety into your week. Don't know if anybody else out there is like me, but I can be a terrible, terrible procrastinator. I can be quite good at the old avoidance technique, especially if it's something that does trigger my anxiety, make me feel a little bit nervous. I'm very good at putting it on the back burner, and it sits there niggling away at the back of my head, or wake me up in the night, oh, I should have done that, or I just keep putting it to the side, and it builds and it builds, and it becomes a bigger deal than it needs to be. So if you're like me in any way, and I need to take my own advice here, start scheduling these little activities or these things that need to be done into your week, so that you can just tick them off, it's done, and that they're not kind of playing in the back of your mind there. Again, this wouldn't be for me because I'm a bit too scatty, but and I like to I just swing by the seat of my pants, as they say. But for some, it might be a case of making lists or timetables even. And it can be that just sometimes that little bit of structure can just help organise the mind, it can help organise the body, and just give a little bit of semblance of control and order to the day, to the week, and just help you feel a bit more in control. And this one is so important, so important. Prioritise self-care routines that you find beneficial for you. If you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling that semblance of depression creeping through, again, a bit like we were saying with sleep, food, diet, these things can be the first things to go. Looking after ourselves properly, it can feel quite hard work. Self-care routines that you find beneficial are just crucial, and it can be so simple. A good shower, wash your hair, a salt bath, paint your nails, exercise, I don't know, whatever suits you, but just find something that helps you feel better in yourself. So yeah, I'm really going to reiterate that self-care routines that benefit you, because we are terrible for letting that slide when we don't feel so great, and then we start to tumble. And it can be just that little simple thing, like putting on a nice jumper, washing our hair, putting on that bit of makeup, shaving, that just makes us just feel that little bit better about facing the day ahead of us. Some natural things that you can kind of do to help yourself. So essential oils. Now, essential oils aren't going to be for everybody, but for those of you that do love your essential oils, oils that are really, really good for stress and anxiety are lavender, ylang-ylang, bergamot, chamomile, jasmine, clary sage, and lemon. Now, what's nice with that, there's a really nice range there of fruity, citrusy, earthy and floral kind of oils there, because everyone's kind of got different preferences, enjoy different smells. So it's a case of kind of finding ones that suit you, because I say lavender will work for some, it won't work for others. So it's kind of just playing around with them and finding what suits you. But there's a variety of ways that you can use essential oils. Now, a very, very simple and beneficial way is to use them in a diffuser. You can get some really, really pretty ones now that they plug in, you put the water in, you put a few drops of the oils in. You use between 1 and 3 just oils, but you just kind of want to make sure they complement each other, because the smells otherwise can be kind of overwhelming. But a few drops of oils and plug it in and then just allow it to run. Generally the diffusers will switch themselves off when they have come to the end, and they just diffuse steadily through the hours that they're running. You're absorbing that as you're breathing. It's diffusing out into your environment, so it can be just very, very relaxing They're also great for cold and flu season, if you kind of get your peppermint, your eucalyptuses and your tea trees and different things like that. So I'm just throwing that in there now. But especially if you've got young ones that are full of colds and flus and whatnot, it can be a great way just to get them into the air in the house, and you're breathing all that goodness in. So you can use a diffuser. You've got the little burners that you put the candles in. Just make sure you put water in. Still got to be a little bit aware that the heat from the flame can kind of burn the oils, but just keep the water topped up. And again, that kind of diffuses into the air. You can run a lovely bath. If you're doing your self-care rituals, run yourself a lovely bath. Have a salt bath and put kind of few drops of your chosen essential oil in. Be a little bit conscious about which ones you're putting in the water. Not all are suitable. Again, go by which ones you're drawn to. Maybe just do a little bit of research just to check. But things like lavender are always very safe to pop in your bath water, pop a few drops, and make sure you kind of disperse the water first as well, so it doesn't evaporate off the surface, it's dispersed into the water. Another good thing to do is, if you've got an empty spray bottle, sort of top that up with distilled water, and you can use a little bit of witch hazel if you wish, and then select a couple of oils and make your own spray. And that can be to spray over yourself, it can be to spray around the room, you can take that in the car, you can do the same with rollerball ones, you can make up your own rollerballs and just use a carrier oil, such as almond oil, grapeseed oil, you can even use vegetable oil. It's really good for absorbing. You can use your oils in a whole variety of ways. If anyone has any questions or wants to know a little bit more, do feel free to kind of give me a message, and we can kind of talk through those a little bit more. But that's just putting some kind of more natural ways of helping yourself there with any kind of anxiety, stress situations. Herbal tea can be a really good way. It's like we were saying probably a little while ago in the video now, to try and reduce your caffeine intake. So herbal tea can be a really good supplement, especially going into this winter sort of time of year. Herbal tea can be a really good way of getting those hot drinks in, but also relaxing the body. So go for the kind of the chamomiles, the vetivias, the lavender flowers, the lime flowers, rose, very gentle, nourishing, relaxing teas on the body. A bit like anything with the essential oils, with the teas and things, just be careful on dosage. You have to remember, like anything, it's too much of a good thing is never a good thing. So just be a little bit conscious and aware that you're not OTT with it all. Crystals, for those of you that love your crystals. Crystals are equally great for working with anxiety and stress. So you can use amethyst, which is great for anxiety attacks. Blue lace agate, stressful and tense communications. Rose quartz is great for balancing emotions. Clear quartz will help you remain centered. Black tourmaline will release tension and reduce anxiety. So again, a bit like our taste for food, our taste for drinks, our taste, our smells, we're all very individual and unique. So what works for one won't necessarily work for another. So again, see what you're drawn to, see which ones you would like to play with, have a mess around with them, and what works for you at one time might not necessarily work for you another time, and you find you're drawn to something else. So there's an awful lot you can do with crystals, but first and foremost, I must say that you need to tell your crystals what you want them to do. So once you have obtained your crystals, and make sure you cleanse them, you must ask them to work with you, to work alongside you with your stress and your anxiety, your depression, whatever's worrying you at this moment. Because a bit like us, unless we're kind of given orders of what we need to do in a situation, we will just kind of flounder around, and the crystals are no different. They like to be told what to do. So You can put them in your bra, you can wear them in your pocket, you can put them in your purse, place them under your pillow, place them in an environment where you spend an awful lot of your time, in the car. Again, you can make crystal sprays, and this can absolutely coincide with using essential oils. There's nothing to say you can't use the two together. The only thing I'm going to say is some crystals can't get wet, or they will dissolve. They're porous. They've generally got lines on them. So black tourmaline, for instance, you wouldn't put in the water. It will just dissolve and fall apart. But you can create your sprays. Again, you do your distilled water. You don't have to use oils. I say oils aren't for everybody, but it can be a great way to go out and give yourself a spritz before you walk out the door, or if they're in the car or in your handbag and you just need that little go-to to give yourself a spritz. You can pop them in the bath. Again, when you're doing your salt bath, you pop your oils in if you wish. Pop some crystals in the bath as well. And you can also do crystal water. I'm sure many of you have seen these, the bottles with the crystals in and things, and they're very, very beautiful. They're gorgeous, but you don't necessarily have to go and spend the money on, the big fancy bottles. You can do it just as easily at home with your tumblestone. So you get your bottle of water and you potentially, you place your crystal in the water with the intention set of what you would like it to do. Allow it to infuse overnight and then just drink it steadily through the next day. So yeah, just play around with them. You can make up your own crystal prescriptions, put one or two of them together and see how it works for you. You just go with what works. I say each one of us is different, unique. Just go with it. Trust yourself and trust that gut instinct. You'd be amazed, your body will tell you what it needs and what's working for it. So I hope that some of these sort of self-care hints and tips I've kind of spoken about this morning might be of benefit to some of you. If not now, maybe they might come to mind down the line at some point if they're ever needed. But I do really need to reiterate that anxiety, it is normal. Every single one of us experiences it in our daily life, but there is obviously that line between it being beneficial and helpful to us and it becoming detrimental to our daily life, to it hindering our daily life and affecting our well-being. And there is absolutely no shame, no badness, no weakness in admitting that anxiety is potentially built up and is becoming too much for us. So if it has become too much and perhaps these little hints and tips, they aren't helping, or they're not helping as much as perhaps they were, please reach out. Please don't be ashamed to talk to somebody, whether it's friends, family, online services, the doctor. There is so much that can be done to help you, and you don't have to suffer in silence or on your own or think there's anything wrong with you. It's incredibly common for us to get overwhelmed, and especially this year. We're in a second lockdown now, we're in the winter months. It's been a difficult year for many, but there is definitely nothing weak or bad about experiencing higher levels of anxiety. So please reach out, whether it's to loved ones, friends, family, services, but just know that you're not alone. Okay, beautiful souls, I have probably taken up enough of your time at this stage. I am actually going to write these hints and tips up and put them on my blog, which is Quintessence Holistics at Blogspot, I think. But I wish you a beautiful day ahead and a lovely weekend ahead. May it be full of magic and miracles. And I will talk to you soon. Okay, much love, guys, and have a wonderful weekend ahead. Okay, Bye.